Carl Jung spent his life mapping the figures that live inside every man, and one of them is the king. Not the tyrant, not the weakling pretender, but the ordered center that brings calm to chaos and takes responsibility for the realm. Most men never meet this part of themselves. They live ruled by the frightened boy instead, reacting, hiding, waiting for permission that is never coming. The archetype is already in you, dormant. The way a language you were never taught still sits encoded somewhere in your blood. Calling it forward is not pretending to be someone you are not. It is becoming someone you have always been but never dared to embody. Start acting from the part of you that takes ownership instead of the part that makes excuses, and watch how quickly the people around you sense the shift. They feel the king before they can name him. You have heard that you should be yourself, and it is some of the worst advice ever handed to a struggling man. Which self? The one who scrolls until 2 in the morning and hates himself by noon. The one who flinches from every hard thing. Being yourself when your current self is undisciplined and afraid is a recipe for staying exactly where you are. The great men of history did not find themselves. They built themselves deliberately, choosing traits the way an architect chooses materials. There is a strange power in deciding who you will be, and then walking around as if it were already true. Psychologists found that we act in line with the roles we believe we occupy, that the costume shapes the man wearing it. So stop waiting to discover some authentic core. Pick the man worth being and put him on like armor every single morning. A boy is defined by what is done to him. A man is defined by what he does. The whole crossing from one to the other happens at the moment you stop pointing at the world and start pointing at yourself. And most people never make that crossing, no matter how old they get. They reach 50 still blaming a father, a system, an unfair break years gone. Understand the cold mechanics of it. The moment you assign the cause of your life to something outside yourself, you have also handed away the power to change it. Locus of control, the psychologists named it, and the ones who believe their outcomes rest in their own hands consistently outperform the ones who feel pushed around by fate. The great man takes radical ownership, not because every misfortune was his fault, but because ownership is the only posture from which anything can be fixed. Picture a man who has decided, truly decided, what he stands for. Watch how differently he moves through a room. He does not scan faces for approval. He does not adjust his opinions to match the loudest voice. There is a stillness to him that unsettles people, because most of them are performing constantly and he is not. This is what conviction does to a nervous system. It removes the exhausting question of who you should be in every situation, because the answer was settled long before you walked in. Men without a code are blown around by every mood and every crowd, and they wonder why they feel so unanchored. The great man built his spine out of principles he refuses to violate, and that internal structure does for him what scaffolding does for a building under storm. Decide what you will not bend on, then become unbendable about it. Greatness has a cost, and the cost is comfort. Every man who ever amounted to anything paid in loneliness, in criticism, in nights of doubt where the easy road glowed like a lit window in the dark. The herd does not applaud the one who breaks formation. It mocks him, doubts him, sometimes hates him, right up until the moment he succeeds, at which point it claims to have believed all along. You must make peace with this early, or it will break you. The desire to be liked is a leash, and the great man slips it deliberately, choosing respect over affection when forced to choose. He understands that standing for something guarantees standing against someone. If everyone approves of you, you have likely made yourself into furniture, agreeable and forgettable. Be willing to be disliked for the right reasons. That willingness is the entry fee, and almost no one is prepared to pay it. There was a Stoic emperor who ran the most powerful empire on earth and still woke before dawn to write reminders to himself about how to be a better man. Marcus Aurelius had every excuse to coast, every reason to indulge, and he chose instead to hold himself to a standard no one was enforcing. That is the mark of the archetype. The great man is governed from within by a code that does not loosen when no one is watching, because he understands that character is exactly what you do in the dark. Most men behave only as well as their audience demands. Remove the witnesses, and they collapse into their lowest appetites. You build the king by becoming your own harshest authority, the one whose standard never drops, regardless of who is or is not in the room. Self-governance is the rarest crown, and it is the only one no one can take from you. Imagine two versions of you standing side by side. One is who you are today, with all the habits and fears and unfinished business. The other is who you could become if you stopped negotiating with yourself. The distance between them is not talent, and it is not luck. It is the daily refusal to do what you know you should. The great man closes that gap not in one heroic leap, but through 1,000 small acts of keeping his word to himself. Every time you do the hard thing you said you would, you cast a vote for the man you are building. Every time you fold, you vote for the boy you are trying to leave behind. Your identity is just the running tally of those votes. Stop hoping to wake up transformed. Transformation is the accumulated residue of choices, and you are making one right now by how seriously you take these words. A great man is not the one who feels no fear. That figure does not exist, and the men who claim it are lying or broken. Courage was never the absence of fear. It was action taken while fear screamed in your ear, and the archetype you are chasing was forged precisely in those moments most men avoid. Your brain is wired by evolution to flag every risk, to keep you safe in a cave that no longer exists, and left unquestioned, it will talk you out of everything worth doing. The great man hears the fear and moves anyway, not because he is numb, but because he has decided that the life on the other side of fear is the only one worth living. Treat fear as a compass instead of a wall. The thing you are most afraid to do is usually the exact direction your growth is pointing. Walk toward it. Watch how a great man speaks, and notice what he does not do. He does not fill every silence. He does not rush to explain himself or apologize for taking up space. His words are fewer, and they land heavier, because each one was chosen rather than spilled. There is a discipline to presence that the anxious never develop, a willingness to let a pause sit without scrambling to fill it. The man who needs to be heard constantly reveals how unsure he is of his own worth. The one who can stay quiet, who listens fully before he answers, who speaks only when he has something to add, commands a room without raising his voice. This is not technique. It flows naturally from a man who is settled within himself, who does not need the moment to validate him. Cultivate the inner steadiness first, and the commanding presence follows on its own.